It is one thing, Madam President, to say things, and it is another to say things that are true. So let us review some of the things that have been said on the floor of the Senate today in the context of this discussion. One of my colleagues said that this rule, which will for the first time require our power plants to meet mercury emission standards that other industries have had to meet and have successfully met for years, that is now coming on, to use his words, too far and too fast. Too far and too fast. Well, the Clean Air Act was passed 30 years ago, and specific to this, in the year 2000, EPA began the process that has culminated in this rule, determining that it would be, quote, appropriate and necessary to have a rule on this kind of hazardous air pollution being emitted by power plants. So here we are in 2012, and we're being told that it is too fast, that utilities are obliged to comply with a program that was first announced as appropriate and necessary in the year 2000. It would seem to me that a dozen years' notice is enough, and particularly where other industries have already met these standards. On that note, the same colleague said that compliance with these standards is, quote, nearly impossible. Well, it's obviously not nearly impossible if other industries have already complied with the standard that the electric utility industry is being asked to comply with. But more specifically, this rule sets the mark at a level where the highest performing 12% of emitters already are. They're already there. So it's not a question of compliance being nearly impossible. Compliance is actually already achieved by the good behaving and responsible utilities who have put the technology to work to clean up their exhausts. In a letter that I would like to ask unanimous consent to add to the record at the conclusion of my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
That 16 of my colleagues, led by myself and the distinguished chairwoman of the Environment Public Works Committee, Barbara Boxer, wrote to the President supporting this rule. We described, for one thing, a utility called Constellation, which has invested to add environmental controls and a new scrubber to its Brandon Shores facility in Maryland, cutting mercury emissions by 90%. And also, in addition, creating 1,385 jobs at peak construction, not counting the many more jobs manufacturing those clean air technologies. So this is not nearly impossible. This is being done regularly. And the other remark that was made by this colleague is that the country does not support EPA on this. To the contrary, actually, public health groups and officials across the country support this. The Academy of Pediatrics, the Association of Respiratory Care, the Heart Association, the Lung Association, the American Nurses Association, the Public Health Association, the March of Dimes. It's a considerable number of public health supporters. And if you want to go beyond the public health community, it's interesting to note that the faith community is very actively supporting our position on this. Everything from the Evangelical Environmental Network to the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America to the General Baptist Convention of Texas to the National Council of Churches USA to the Jewish Council on Public Affairs to the U.S. Conference on Catholic Bishops and the United Methodist Church. So to say that America does not support the EPA on this, I think, is to take a very constricted view of America. Perhaps the occupants of the electric utility boardrooms in America would be more precise. Some of the folks that support this, interestingly, aren't just health groups, but they are the electric utilities themselves. Half of the fossil fuel generating electric power plants in the country are controlled by electric utilities that support the EPA rule. Let me read some examples from this same letter. The chairman, president, and CEO of Wisconsin Energy said, "We really see very little impact on customer electric rates or our capital plan between now and 2015 as a result of all the new EPA regulations that have been proposed. Very little impact." The senior vice president of energy policy at Seminole Electric Cooperative indicated that if the EPA adopts a mercury rule as currently proposed, Seminole would already be meeting that standard. So much for it being nearly impossible. Duke Energy's CEO noted that, "I think 3 years is doable, not too fast, doable, as a compliance timeline for this rule." And the CEO of PSENG stated that, "We are well positioned to meet the anticipated requirements under EPA's MACT regulation. We believe these regulations are long overdue, not coming too fast, long overdue. Our experience shows that it is possible to clean the air, create jobs, and power the economy, all at the same time." Another one of my colleagues said that higher electric bills should be measured on the one hand against the negligible benefits on the other hand. That was a theme that a number of colleagues adopted. Another one said that this was all costs, no benefits. A third said that this bill fails to find the proper balance between cost and benefit. And a fourth said that this bill would be, that the rule would be hammering our economy, in effect, a tax increase. What are the facts? The facts are that although this bill, the rule, will cost $9.6 billion to implement, because there is better health, because there are beneficial effects of not polluting our country with all of these dangerous chemicals, the benefits are between $37 and $90 billion. $9 billion in cost, $37 to $90 billion every year in savings, in benefit to our economy. On the whole, this is a huge economic win for the country. The only place where it's a problem is, again, in the boardrooms of the electric utility companies that have not been good citizens, that have not put the scrubbers on, that are trailing the rest of the industry and don't want to be forced to catch up to where other industries and half of their industry now is. And if you want to move off, as Senator Lautenberg so movingly did, the accounting of this $9 billion in cost versus $37 to $90 billion in benefits, there are the 11,000 lives that will be saved every year. You can't put a price on a human life. This will save them. The last point is that the distinguished ranking member of the Environment and Public Works Committee described a relentless war. And what he was referring to is, I think, an imagined war on, by the Obama administration against the coal industry. I think if there is a relentless war out here, and I'm speaking now as a senator from Rhode Island, it is a relentless war of these polluting coal plants against the northeastern states in particular, my state in particular, that carry the burden of all the fallout of that exhaust and that pollution that they don't bother to treat at the source, so it lands in our state. Let me ask unanimous consent also to add into the record the resolution in support of the EPA mercury and air toxic standards for power plants that was adopted by the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I won't read the whole thing, but let's just read the concluding paragraph. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the U.S. Conference of Mayors strongly supports the EPA's issued mercury and air toxic standards for power plants.
Without objection, we will put that in the record.
There were no federal standards for mercury until now for our power plants. You would think that we should have done this by now. Well, yes, we should have done this by now. But at last, we are here. At last, we will achieve the benefits of $1 in cost for $3 to $9 in savings and in benefits to Americans. We should be celebrating this sensible and yet significant public health achievement, and instead we are engaged in a debate that I think is confounded on their side. Their arguments are confounded by the actual facts. The benefits are really staggering. In addition to the 11,000 lives saved, 4,700 fewer heart attacks, 130,000 fewer cases of children suffering asthma attacks, 5,700 fewer emergency room visits each year. And let me close by mentioning one specific thing. Mercury is a neurotoxin. The reason that people use the phrase mad as a hatter is because hatters making hats used mercury, and mercury poisoned them, made them mad, affected their brains. It is a neurotoxin. And that really affects Rhode Island quite considerably. First of all, we're a state that is downwind. Every Rhode Islander has heard as we drive into work on a summer, bright weekday morning, the radio warning, today's a bad air day in Rhode Island. Children, people with breathing difficulties, seniors should stay indoors today in their air conditioning. It's a beautiful day. People have a right to be outdoors on a beautiful day. They should be celebrating, playing, having picnics, going to the beach. But no, stay indoors because there is ozone pollution that is settling on us from these power plants. In addition to that, the mercury comes in, and that creates a different set of harms in Rhode Island. One harm is that small children should not eat any freshwater fish in Rhode Island, according to our health department. Here's a wonderful Norman Rockwell picture of sort of an emblematic American scene, grandpa taking his grandson fishing. The excitement as the fish comes up out of the pond. Well, that image in Rhode Island is shadowed by the fact that this small child would not be allowed to eat any freshwater fish that he caught with his grandfather because of this mercury pollution that has been bombarded in on us by these out-of-state power plants that did not clean up their act. The further rules, no one in Rhode Island, not just small children, no one in Rhode Island should eat more than one serving of freshwater fish caught in our state each month. So if the grandfather caught 2 fish, he could eat 1 for a month, but he shouldn't eat the other because of the health effects of the mercury that is piled up in the bodies of the fish. And there are some bodies of water that seem to be more in the gun sights of these polluting, dirty Midwestern power plants than others for reasons that nobody can explain. But Quidnick Reservoir in Rhode Island, the Wincheck Pond in Rhode Island, and Yawgoog Pond in Rhode Island, no one should ever eat any of the fish caught in those 3 bodies of water because of the mercury poisoning. So when we talk about every dollar that a utility will spend to clean up its pollution being offset by $3 to $9 in benefits, that figure doesn't take into account these intangible benefits. It doesn't take into account the intangible benefit of being able to enjoy the emblematic American pastime of taking your grandson or going with your grandfather to go fishing in a pond to be able to catch something, bring it home, fry it up, and have it for supper. The utility polluters get to wreck that for free in this equation, but we should not forget it in this chamber. There are many aspects of the American way of life that should not yield to the bottom line of those polluters who are not willing to meet the same rules that so many of their colleagues already do and that so many industries already do.